clients that are educated, it is amazing. But also I do feel like if they're too educated, then they have such strong opinions of what they feel is going to work. And sometimes it'll be, oh, I see these ads and these creators from this brand. And, sometimes there's some multi-billion-pound brand and these guys aren't. And it's like,
Limited
but we
budgets,
cannot just copy. Yeah, we're limited budgets. We can't copy what they're doing. Like we cannot just look at another brand and copy exactly what they're doing. And they don't understand the process of perhaps what that business has done to get there. And they don't realize that they're not them. And so sometimes it's trying to, or something that I always really find quite tricky is when a business doesn't actually I don't think they realize that they don't like their own brand and they don't like their own brand guidelines. And so they give you really strict guidelines. And so you produce creatives or emails on their behalf where they're like, something's not just quite right here, like our tone of voice or our creative. I like this brand. And you're like, yeah, but that brand is a totally different brand. That's why you like it, because it's not your brand guidelines. So it can be a bit of a battle. Very often email marketing is an absolute must. And I think when we look at that across email flows, and even though email's been around for so long and it's one of the oldest channels, it's crazy how many people just do it so badly. So that's always an opportunity for us to improve their flows and to get the revenue up within email. So that's something we'll never really work with clients now on Meta or Google or TikTok, one of those channels to drive acquisition, without having email in place. And that's something that was a huge reason why we brought it in-house, so that we could control those elements, because they just obviously work like magic together.
Yeah, me as an email marketer, as an email enthusiast, I always think about the same, right? The oldest channel and the one that I see has the biggest future. Also, when you make e-commerce merchants understand that the value of the brand, it's in their database, in their email list, right? That if they want to exit their business, if they want to sell their business, investors are going to look at their email list about at their segments. That's the blood of the company. So, and I see that more and more people are realizing that. They're realizing, like you just said, how badly they're doing it, and the opportunity there is huge. But not by itself, right? If you don't feed it with, like you said, with paid ads, with lead formats, like it's a part of a bigger picture. Hello, everybody. What's up? This is Diego Praderi, and this is The Link, your go-to stop to learn everything about e-commerce. And today we're going to be talking with Laura Hanlon. Laura, she's the co-founder and co-director of Pink Leopard. That's an e-commerce growth acceleration agency. And Laura, she's in Birmingham, and she's going to tell me exactly how I should say it. Fun fact about Birmingham: it's the heavy metal capital of the world, because that's where Ozzy Osbourne and some Led Zeppelin band members were born. So it's pretty famous for their music. Laura, how are you?
Oh, thanks so much. What an introduction. Yeah, I'm great though. Thank you. It's really good to be here. And
Cool.
Love that fact.
Yeah, if we can, mix and match e-commerce marketing and music, especially heavy metal from at least my young ages, it's even more fun.
Yeah, definitely. We actually did a walking tour with our team the other day, some of our team members that live overseas, and we went to see the kind of origins of where the heavy metal started in
Oh,
Birmingham.
really?
So that was pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I need to get that tour from you guys. We're gonna go
Yeah.
visit
Yeah.
sometime. Okay.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
so that's great that you had the overseas team members there. But let's start from the beginning. Tell me, what is Pink Leopard? What is an e-commerce growth acceleration agency?
Yeah, so we predominantly work with e-commerce clients, so across kind of all different sectors and all different sizes, and we work with them digitally, mainly across paid social, search, and email marketing to help them to help them grow and scale really to where they want to get to. So we work, our sort of sweet spot is working with female founded businesses who have got a predominantly female customer base, because our team is predominantly female as well. So it's just kind of really what we know and what we love. So yeah, that's a bit about what we do.
That's great. And tell me, what was your journey from where you were to actually building? What inspired you to build Pink Leopard? What was your vision for the agency when you just started?
Yeah, so I kind of got into it accidentally, as I feel like most agency most agency owners do. I started actually about 10 years ago working for, I kind of got into network marketing, and was growing a bit of a personal brand there on social media. And that really kind of helped me and opened up my eyes to being able to see the power of social media. And it was back where, with organic, you could post something on your Facebook page and generate loads of sales. Or remember that heyday. And so I started doing a bit of consultancy then for some other businesses, mainly in the organic space. But as I started working with more and more businesses, I realized that they had huge growth plans, to double in size, triple in size, and really just focusing on organic social wasn't the way to get them there. So I pivoted into paid advertising, and I really just wanted to be the best Facebook advertiser, or one of the best in the world. So I invested a lot of money and time into some of the best coaches, and really just that's kind of how my journey and passion for Facebook advertising really started. And then I just worked with lots of different companies, from roofing companies to healthcare companies to various e-commerce stores, and then really found my feet with e-commerce. And I just loved the way you could, grow and scale and generate sales. It was very black and white. Whereas with service-based businesses, I always got frustrated with having the sales middleman, and they were responsible for, obviously, a lot of the legwork. And then I sort of fast forward, I was a bit of a glorified contractor at the time, and I was doing absolutely everything. And then I brought my business partner on about 4 years ago. So his skill sets complemented mine, and that he was in business development, and he also in employee engagement. So we then decided to form and actually build an agency and start hiring a team. So yeah, fast forward to 4 years later, and that's where we are. We're a team of 18, I think we are now, and kind of expanded from just Facebook advertising to across other channels too.
That's great. Where's your team located right now?
So I'd say 3/4 of them are UK based, mainly in Birmingham, but some are dotted around. And then we have a few in Europe and a couple in South America.
Cool.
So
yeah. Neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to come over there and visit them.
Yeah, you're more than invited. Only just come in not in winter. You won't like winter here.
Yeah.
So Lara, tell me, what was, so you started with Facebook ads, right? You started working that way, solving, I guess, like you said, like the growth problems that your clients had, focusing on e-commerce. You brought your business partner in. What was the following service? So where did you grow to? Facebook ads first. What came second? What was the segue for growth?
Yeah, so Facebook ads first, and then we moved into Google ads second. And that was just mainly because we had a lot of clients asking us really for, they wanted to venture into the world of Google ads, and it kind of felt like the right next step for us. But we never wanted to just bolt on a service and say, yeah, we do that. Because I still don't do Google ads. I was just purely Facebook ads, and I was never gonna, just learn on the client's money. So we hired our head of Google, and that's sort of how we've then grown out. And then we brought on email marketing after that. So yeah, they're the kind of stages that we've grown. And luckily it's kind of been alongside iOS coming into Meta. iOS coming in and affecting Meta. Luckily, we'd already brought Google on then, but it was after that we actually brought email marketing in. So we've just been ahead and swerved a few a few punches really from all of the things that have happened. We really needed to diversify.
And tell me, and when you start bringing those new services, do you expand to sell those services to your existing clients, or you go out to look for new clients? How do you grow?
Yeah, so definitely with our existing clients, and sort of, yeah, the reason for expanding is that a lot of our clients sort of asking for those services, and we were working with other agencies initially, and sort of partnering with other agencies, but then we really then wanted to kind of bring it in house and have that control, um, and then we sort of expanded out to offering those as standalone services as well for sort of externally for businesses we hadn't worked with, which has enabled us to then bring on email clients, for example, and then that was the leading the segue to Facebook and Google. So it's kind of helped us grow the agency, sort of full circle, really.
Cool. And tell me, Laura, how have you seen the market changing? I would say before I would ask like in the last 2 years, but maybe in the last year, how is it changing? How the market, the strategies, even the creativity is changing, and how are you keeping up?
Yeah. Oh wow. I could spend ages moaning about how certain things are changing or affecting the market. But um yeah, really, I think I also well agree. Yeah, it's been really over the last 2 years, but I guess more so in the last year. A huge thing first, I think, has been really the shift in media buying. Like certainly when I started as a Facebook advertiser, I loved the fact that, all of the optimizations and getting really detailed with the targeting, and it was all about the back end of Facebook ads. And I think slowly it's really sort of shifted away from that, and then hugely, like, even more so then over the last sort of 6 months, 6 to 12 months. So just every single sort of day really seeing it change even drastically towards, not that media buying is is dead. My media team would absolutely kill me for that, for saying so. But I definitely think that once you're a certain level of a media buyer and you have that skill set, I do think that it's kind of limited to what you can do now, because Facebook, Google, they all want, they want to take control, don't they, with their machine learning and AI. And so really, I think it's hugely changed towards creative and copywriting, and that's really where the focus and the growth has to be. So yeah, huge shifts in that over the last few months. And I think also a change in, obviously we were really proud to be a Facebook only agency, and we could get some amazing results for some clients that had really terrible products, to be honest with you, and terrible creatives. But you could run anything, couldn't you, back then, and it sort of worked, and you were getting a 5-6 times return. But we saw a real shift in needing a full multi-channel, a full omni-channel presence, and really seeing that change in, if we're working with a client who's running Facebook ads and they're not doing the other elements, such as they're not doing Google, or maybe they're not building their brands, they've not got anything on TV, or they're not doing anything with PR. It's hard. Like, it's really difficult to try and get results for those clients now, and that's so different to even what it was 3 years ago. So, which is good, I suppose. It's moving into businesses that are taking things seriously and are looking at sort of every element. Just going back to marketing 101, really having an amazing product to start with, and knowing how to market it, understanding their customer, working, like having amazing creatives that really speak to their customer. And I think they're two of probably the biggest shifts that I've seen more recently over the 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We're seeing exactly, I think that's the trend. And tell me, to get great at the creative side, right, and the strategy side,
Mhm.
What's the process that you have in place? What's the process that you make your clients go through to really understand like who they are and what should they communicate and how they should communicate, and how do you build that creative uh, product, and then how is it that you optimize it further?
Yeah, so we do a lot of sort of detailed getting to understand the brand, getting to understand the business, and a real deep dive research into their customer, into their competitors, and really, yeah, understanding their brand and understanding their customer, and working with something called the five W's, which is the what they sell, the who they're selling it to, the wow points of their product, the why people, their customers would buy, why they wouldn't buy, understanding the objections. And that really forms the basis. That sort of piece of work really forms the basis of everything that we do across the copywriting and the creatives, whether that's, across the ads or across email marketing. And that then also forms the part of the creative. So then if we look at taking, a piece of creative, like a video, for example, and we're looking at the hook, the problem, the feature, the solution, the call to action, then that's the kind of formula that we look at and find works really well. And it's all because of that initial discovery phase, and that we've taken the time, and the entire team have kind of taken that time to really understand and, as I say, get to know the customer and every element of their business. So yeah, we then kind of work with the customers to we work then with our clients to direct them. If they've got that sort of production side in house, then we can direct them on exactly what we need in order to then be able to edit it and put it into videos and creatives that we know exactly what's going to work. I think there's a lot of, and then, you can't not talk about the user UGC side, although I do feel like every man and their dog is now running UGC, and soon all of the creatives are going to be exactly the same, the TikTok style videos. So we're kind of moving a little bit, and I think it will potentially then move towards sort of full polished creatives again, which we were moving away from. So we're actually now really finding that like static images and just raw assets are working again, not the kind of the really edited creatives. So yeah, that's sort of how we work, and just keeping up with the trends and testing. Like, not one thing works in every single account. So I think it's being, not being afraid to test and try different things.
And Laura, how I'm curious, how is it that you educate those difficult customers, right? Difficult clients that they want, that they don't totally get that it's about the customers, not about their products, not about them. Like, how is it that you educate them? Is there a process? Is there kind of a nurturing process that you make them go through to start kind of forgetting about their logos and thinking about their customers? Does that still happen to you?
Yes. I mean, I think everything is everything is like educational wise when it comes to clients. But I think I think well, a lot of the time we try and use proof. Proof is in the pudding. We show them creatives that worked for other brands, and how that looks, and how that's different to maybe what they're thinking. But sometimes we will also just say, okay, well, that's what you want, so let's test for the really difficult, hard to please clients. That's what you want, and then this is what we advise. And obviously, as long as they're happy to test both, then it's, we swallow our pride, and we'll just test a number of different creatives until we can really show the impact. And I hate to say it, but normally we're right.
Well, yeah, that's why they're looking after you. And so,
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah.
do you find that kind of difficult clients are less and less? Because one thing that I'm finding, like, I kind of enjoy that educational part, right? Because you start to prove them wrong, and you start to prove yourself right, and your process. But also what I'm seeing, and I don't know if it's the same with you, is that clients are more and more educated. They they
Mm.
they start knowing more. So it is for, I don't know, maybe legacy clients, older generations maybe, that we have to educate. But I see that newer generations, they're more marketing conscious, and in my opinion, that's helpful in a way, right? It's a double-edged sword, because that's helpful in a way because they understand that the process is master, right? That you need to master a process and a strategy, but also at the same time, you get all those clients that they think they know all, right? And sometimes it even makes it more difficult. Do you see that with the clients from the UK and that you work with?
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it is definitely a double-edged sword. And I think clients that are educated, it is amazing. But also, I do feel like if they're too educated, then they have such strong opinions of what they
Uh,
feel is going to work. And sometimes it'll be, oh, I see these ads and these creators from this brand. And, sometimes there's some multi-billion-pound brand and these guys aren't.
and
And
limited
it's like, yeah, but we
budgets. Yeah.
cannot just copy. Yeah, we're limited budgets. We can't copy what they're doing. Like we cannot just look at another brand and copy exactly what they're doing. And they don't understand the process of perhaps what that business has done to get there. And they don't realize that they're not them. And so sometimes it's trying to, or something that I always really find quite tricky is when a business doesn't actually I don't think they realize that they don't like their own brand and they don't like their own brand guidelines. And so they give you really strict guidelines. And so you produce creatives or emails on their behalf where they're like, something's not just quite right here, like our tone of voice or our creative. I like this brand. And you're like, yeah, but that brand is a totally different brand. That's why you like it, because it's not your brand guidelines. So it can be a bit of a battle. Yeah, when it comes
I've never
to,
thought it. I've never thought about it that way. Like, I think that you have a great point there. They don't like their brand. I think
yeah,
that's a big discovery, that it also plays with their egos in a way, right? But
yeah,
it must be kind of mind blowing for them to realize that they don't like their brand, right? It's kind of a
yeah.
realization time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think it's maybe until other people are trying to then build the creators for them or presenting things back to them. Yeah, it's the ones that they can't quite put the finger on what they don't like about it, and normally it's their brand. So yeah, but a good realization, but
Yeah,
a realization
hard
nonetheless.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. And Laura, what's your ideal customer? What would you say is your your target ideal persona?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, so we work with female founders, I guess from Pink Leopard being a female founded agency ourselves. That's kind of just who we've really attracted, and then built out a predominantly female team. So that's sort of our sweet spot. And with a female customer base, that tends to then be across sort of beauty, apparel, and homeware. I think business owners who are really who do really want to grow and scale their business, and it's not just kind of a side project. They're really serious about the growth. They're already doing the kind of a million mark, so about 100K a month, because then they do have the budgets to invest, and they're not just a startup who have a product. They don't know if their product is going to work. They haven't had any sales yet, and it's like, can you make this into £1 million brand for me? So they definitely already have some kind of some traction there. And also, we like working with ones that are making a positive change in the world as well. And also, we've got quite a few clients that are diverse clients, so that keeps things interesting too. So I'd say those really are the main things. And as long as we can, I always say it's the beer test. As long as you go for a beer or a glass of wine with your client, then that's
I
perfect
like
for
that.
us.
And are your clients based mainly in the UK, Europe, or are they like all over the place?
Yeah, mainly probably 80% are UK and Europe, and then the rest would be US based.
Cool.
Yeah.
Laura, you mentioned earlier like crazy results that you get for your clients. Would you mind sharing a strategy that you really feel proud of? Can you give us kind of the context of what is it that you did? What was the problem that they were facing, and how you resolved it? Can you think about an example about that?
Yeah, so we working with a fashion brand who we've worked with for probably the last 9 months now. Um, yeah, beautiful fashion brand, but very seasonal. So they were seeing a lot of they were seeing really good traction in their peak months, but they were seeing a lot of like a huge dips in the kind of off season. They really wanted to focus on that sort of autumn winter seasons. They had a business all year round, and we really just took time to audit their accounts to see what they were doing, to understand, you know, where the opportunities were. Um, and so they were running Facebook ads already, but we're using a lot of strategies that were post iOS, I would say. Like a lot of micromanaging, not using all the, you know, the sort of algorithm support that Facebook, you know, that Meta wants you to use. They weren't running Google ads, and their email marketing was really, they just didn't have their flows, the correct flows set up in place. So we saw a huge opportunity for this brand, and so we we started working with them 9 months ago. So we set up all their flows, made sure that they were their welcome flow, their ad cart, their abandon flow, and their win black flow were all performing really well. And then we started working on their Meta and their Google accounts, and we saw their year-on-year sales jump by 168%, and we actually reduced the ad spend by 29% just by maximizing, you know, all of the various things that we spotted in the audit. So test a new strategy for this client as well that we've seen work really well for a lot of brands over the Q4 period. So to build up because they had big seasonal drops across spring, summer, and autumn, winter with their new collections. So we built their email database. So we ran lead form ads within Facebook and used a lot of sense of urgency, got people to subscribe. And then when they had their drop come in, we would then send email campaigns to those customers. And we saw huge spikes in sales by kind of using that strategy that we would use for other brands over Q4. So yeah, it was a huge success. And we've, as I say, we're working with them now across all three elements and growing and scaling. And they've also seen a really, really strong sales across that autumn winter period too.
That sounds great. I'm curious about the lead gen strategy that you use with Meta to grow their list. Can you share more details about how it works, how it goes?
Yeah, of course. So we with other brands, we have tested using landing pages, but also using lead form ads. I have a love-hate relationship with lead form ads within Facebook because when I've worked with other service-based businesses before, it would always bring in really bad quality leads. But we're finding that it works really well for e-commerce, for getting email subscribers. So we build the lead form ads, and it's really important to have a some sort of discount or incentive. But I think this is really why it really worked for this client, because the sense of urgency was to put your details in, because it literally was going to be a sellout collection. So to put their details in to, you know, be the first to hear about the collection and also have 10% off. So that sort of suspense and the excitement with 10% off, we were generating a huge amount of leads, but we were also seeing a return on ad spend and purchases against that, the lead form campaign, so that we knew it was working and it was generating the returns. Obviously, it wasn't as high as our purchase campaigns, but we saw a huge spike, as I said, from those email campaigns when the drop kind of went live.
Love it. And actually, what you're talking about now, it's like understanding the whole ecosystem. That's another thing that clients have sometimes trouble to understand, that it's not just a website, right? That you need to put all the ecosystem or the tech stack together. How do you go about that? Like, how do you, if I'm a client, I come to you and I don't have everything in place. How do you work with me to assess what are the pieces that I need to have in place and to structure those and to start using? Do you have a preferred tech stack? Do you go on a case by case basis? How is it that you work around that?
Yeah, it's definitely case by case. I think a lot of clients that we work with, it depends what they're already doing and what they already have done and what they've tested. It depends what um, their product is and which channels they're going to perform best on. So um, that particular client performed really well on Google, but we have worked with other, fashion clients who really just perform sort of a brand campaign when it comes to Google, because it's such a their product particularly such a saturated marketplace, and so the competition, they were just getting completely outbid by competitors. So it really depends on the product. Whereas Meta and TikTok were a huge opportunity for them. So we do look at that. We look at if they've had success before, or if they've been on the platform and it hasn't worked. We'll do an audit to see why hasn't it worked. Was it because of what you were doing, or was it because there wasn't the opportunity there? Very often email marketing is an absolute must, and I think when we look at that across email flows, and even though email's been around for so long and it's one of the oldest channels, it's crazy how many people just do it so badly. So that's always an opportunity for us to improve their flows and to get the revenue up within email. So that's something we'll never really work with clients now on Meta or Google or TikTok, one of those channels to drive acquisition, without having email in place. And that's something that was a huge reason why we brought it in-house, so that we could control those elements, because they just obviously work like magic together.
Yeah, me as an email marketer, as an email enthusiast, I always think about the same, right? The oldest channel and the one that I see has the biggest future. Also, when you make e-commerce merchants understand that the value of the brand, it's in their database, in their email list, right? That if they want to exit their business, if they want to sell their business, investors are going to look at their email list about at their segments. That's the blood of the company. So, and I see that more and more people are realizing that. They're realizing, like you just said, how badly they're doing it, and the opportunity there is huge. But not by itself, right? If you don't feed it with, like you said, with paid ads, with lead formats, like it's a part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think businesses are realizing that more and more, and they want help growing their list. And that's why we run our email list building campaigns along, but I don't necessarily think we actually tested with one client, because they were saying that their email was performing so well. Every lead that came, every email that came through, they would convert them into a sale. So we switched from an e-commerce funnel driving sales into purely building their email list through Meta. We advised against it, but we went with what they wanted to do. And yeah, that was terrible. That was not a good test at all, because they realized that you've still got to have you've still got to have the balance of using Meta to drive those really high quality purchase intent customers. But the email list is really just sort of supporting it and going, trying to find the extra 10% or 20% growth within Meta, and trying to find those customers within the other audiences that aren't just in conversions. But I don't think from our experience, just running pure email driving for e-commerce is the way to go, or we're yet to find an account that would be. But yeah, that was an interesting test that didn't work.
Yeah. No, actually, if you do that, you dry out your list, basically, right? If you don't.
Yeah.
keep feeding it. And Laura,
Yeah.
I'm curious about like what's the product, not the client, the product you enjoyed working the most. Like I want to understand if there was a product that you maybe I don't know, maybe you didn't see it at the time at the beginning that it would perform and it just like blew your mind. Have you worked with some e-commerce products that are kind of outliers?
Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot that we think would work that don't, and then a lot that
Yeah.
we don't think will work and then do, which always blows my mind. But I actually used to be a
I want
retail
examples of
buyer.
both now.
Yeah, okay. I used to be a retail buyer, and so my job was to
Okay.
choose obviously the items that would go into big retail stores in the UK. And I feel like this is a little bit like that. Deciding what clients to work with is having a hunch and an intuition of what's going to work and what isn't. And I'd like to think that a lot of the time we're right, but yeah, there are definitely some of those outliers where. So one of a client that we're working with is a urine test
Okay.
company. And I didn't necessarily think that we'd be able to help them sort of exceed their goals as we are. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. What else? Gaming. We working with a gaming company where, like big kind of gaming machines that go in
Yeah.
people's houses. Um, over £1,000 AOV, and I don't know, I suppose because that's quite different to what we do. It's not a female audience. It's not a product that I know well or is going to sell. So I was thinking, I don't know who buys these, and I don't know anybody that's got one. But that absolutely flew. We're getting like a 10 times
Really.
return. But obviously the AOV helped with that. But yeah, that's definitely another one that absolutely flew. And we've worked with a couple of others. So it's
Yeah.
definitely the niche.
Actually, what exactly I was gonna say that what it makes sense, right? Like they say, riches are in niches, right?
Yeah.
And what you just described, the urine test and the gamers, is like very specific niches that maybe you don't realize. You try to go massive, and it's just going to that niche, and it just blows up. It
Yeah.
explodes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool to see then you're completely proven wrong, aren't you? But yeah, I do really enjoy seeing that.
And
Um
do you personally get involved like in studying the product, or do you have your team, or do you enjoy like as a as a founder, right? As a CEO, do you enjoy actually getting to know new products, new niches, new audiences? Do you find
yeah, I
any
do.
pleasure in that?
And I'm still very involved in I don't necessarily do the new business sales, but I'm very involved in doing that like initial audit to understand, to see if we think it's a good business, if we want to take them on, and to sort of audit a lot of what they are doing and what they the opportunities. So I get involved in that, and then naturally, obviously, if those businesses come on board, I've already done a lot of research into their brands. So yeah, I get really excited by that still when we bring on a new client, and I'm really excited about the product, and then I love to check in and see how it goes. So yeah, that's definitely. And then the team do I do work closely then with a team with new ideas and new strategies, because I'm always speaking to different agencies and listening to podcasts and all of that side of things. So, if I hear of ideas that might work for those certain brands, then I'll definitely get involved in that. So
Now
yeah.
that now that you mention it, I'm curious. Like, what's your favorite? Give me like your favorite podcasts, top three podcasts, and top three books that you really enjoy that maybe have changed your life. You told me that you invested a lot in your education. What would you say are the top?
Yeah. So what would the top be? Um,
Tough
well,
one.
probably the top. So a lot of, I suppose, my knowledge and kind of upskilling now comes from podcasts. So like I listen to John Loomer, Jessie Healy's podcast. She's an agency, like an agency kind of friend connection, business connection. So I listen to her. Depeche, Mandalia. I read and watch a lot of his stuff, and I've been in a couple of Depeche's masterminds, and also Kat Howell's mastermind. That was one of my first mentors. So yeah, I definitely learned a huge amount of being part of her mastermind. My initial learning of ads and being in this e-commerce world was these kind of masterminds with like Kat and Depeche. And now it's all podcast based. So mainly D2C. Yeah, D2C newsletter. I love it's so funny when everyone asks you your podcast and books. Is it called like No BS newsletter? That's definitely one of my favorite. Yeah, I think that's really insightful.
Is that the Alex, one? Was that?
Is it Alex something?
Isn't that the Russell Brunson with Dan Kennedy? No.
Oh no, it's someone called Alex. She's
Alex Hormozi. Oh, she's okay.
No, I can't remember her last name now, but she's a D2C consultant. She's worked kind of in-house for huge fashion brands before. So she has an amazing newsletter.
Sounds like there's a lot of people fighting BS on the D2C space then.
Yeah, it does, because there's so much BS out there. Exactly. But yeah, I probably signed up to an absolute, I'm sure you're the same, millions of newsletters over my time. So I just every morning read through all of those emails, like Triple Whale. Actually,
do you really read through all of them? Do you get the time to go through? Okay, yeah.
No, but not all of them.
Do you use a folder in your inbox? Or you put them there to hopefully someday read them?
Someday. I just mark everything unread. Yeah. I actually am not that organized that I have folders, but just everything in my inbox is marked as unread. But I always read the Triple Whale one. I actually do, because I think that one's really good. Yeah, I'm really impressed.
You know what? I have a specific folder for the Triple Whale. I think it's amazing. It really provides a lot of value. And I don't know how long they've been around, but I've known them for just a couple of months, actually. Not very long.
A couple. Yeah, I think they've definitely been around for a while. We used their software when it initially launched, but we were kind of playing around with different attributional softwares. But now, I think they're amazing. And the stuff they're doing with AI, report writing with AI, we need that to come along very soon.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with all the AI tools, right? It's hard to determine like which to use and which is actually gonna help us save time, or at the end of the day, sometimes it makes us waste time playing around. So it's a new learning process that we at agencies need to go through.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely in definitely a testing and learning and playing around phase at the moment with it. But exactly. It's scary what's on the horizon.
Yeah. I'm thinking about another adjective, but I think scary.
Yeah.
It's a lot of justice. And I don't know if you've heard Sam Altman speaking, I think it was yesterday or the day before, in the US Congress. And if you haven't, just look for it in Twitter and on YouTube. And he was saying, like, he's the CEO of OpenAI, right? And he was actually saying that, yes, this can go really, really wrong. And this could, in his own words, this could harm humanity. So, it's like we're in the middle of the fire now.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. On one hand, you've got like ChatGPT that everybody's using and playing around with, and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. But then you've got like, this could be really detrimental to humanity if all of the things that they want to put in place could happen. So yeah, it's certainly shaking up our industry, but the whole world, really.
Yeah, exactly. And Laura, tell me, because we're already coming to an end, so I want to know, like, what are your growth plans? What are Pink Leopard's growth plans for this year?
So we're really looking to. I think the team that we've got in place now, we're really happy with. We feel like we've got a really strong team, but we want to double our growth, but pretty much keeping our existing team. We do want to build out our creative team. We're actually looking to. It'll be a sister company of Pink Leopard. We're looking to move into a creative, like purely creative agency to kind of assist with what we're doing in the world of Pink Leopard as well. But it'll enable us to grow and not just be purely focused in the e-commerce world. So yeah, doubling our growth really with Pink Leopard. But as I say, we're really excited about the sister company, and I think that's that's, as we've discussed on the podcast, that's where this whole kind of opportunity is going. So yeah, a lot of growth, a lot of work to do, and hopefully the economy picks up a bit, and well, in the UK, but to enable that growth, that's what we're excited about.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, companies need to keep spending on marketing and growth. So
Yeah,
that's an opportunity as well in some cases.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. So Laura, how would anyone contact you? Can you give us? We're gonna share the details on the podcast, but if you wanna tell our audience how they can contact you, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So our website is www.pinkleopard.co.uk, and our Instagram handle is pinkleoparduk. And I'm also on LinkedIn at laura.elise.hanlon. So if anybody has any questions or wants to say hi, then feel free to do so.
Laura Hanlon, co-director, co-founder of Pink Leopard, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure speaking with you. And to everyone, thank you for joining us once again on The Link. I'm Diego Praderi. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.